Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. Well, today I'm going to talk a little bit about Prince Andrew and his connection to some very nefarious things. So a little parental discretion is advised here. But I want to talk about this only because this is something that a lot of people are not talking about. A lot of people are not talking about what I want to talk about today, and I think it will give you a little bit more perspective on what Prince Andrew, or the former Prince Andrew, what Andrew Mountbatten Windsor needs to do. And for this reason alone, this is what he needs to do. And that's what I'm talking about today. Let's get into it.
Or with the best will in the world, I'm not sure this is the audience that is probably the least bit interested in that. So they all came here to listen to my education solving the future. But no, I think it's all really important always to remember the victims. And who are the victims in all this?
Absolutely.
A lot of victims in this.
Who are these girls? Why did this happen? How did a young girl wind up in the claws of such evil? How did that happen? You have to think about, who are these girls' parents? Do they have parents? Are they runaways? Like, what are the circumstances around a young girl ending up in this position? Because that girl, Virginia Giuffre, and other girls like Virginia, they all have a story. They all have different circumstances. And I could imagine at one time myself being one of those girls, because that is the life that a lot of girls wind up in when they lack a certain type of home life, when they come from places where they have a lot of freedom, or they're homeless, or they are the victims of another man who are putting them in these positions. There are a lot of different circumstances that surround that, but that has always been like the one question that I would usually have is, well, how did that girl end up like this? What is her story? How did that happen? And so what I want to talk to you today about is one of these girls, a 16-year-old girl who wound up in the claws of someone like a Jeffrey Epstein. I don't know much about how she wound up in Jeffrey Epstein's orbit, but I do know a little bit about her story that is not really being covered as much with the drop of the DOJ. Now, this story is in this most recent information. However, a lot of times the stories revolve around the more prominent people, and the girls just become a footnote in a story around a much more prominent person. But I want to take a look at a young girl with Jeffrey Epstein. And the reason why I want to highlight this, or part of the reason, I should say, why I want to highlight this, is because of what Andrew and what he has done most recently. So we know that Andrew, after these photos dropped, he was seen riding on horseback, and he waved to the photographers. That right there symbols to me someone that is very arrogant, that has no real remorse about what they have done, still wanting to say that he has done nothing wrong, and not really even do anything to show an effort of trying to do the right thing. That is what is so grilling in my mind. It's like, ugh, you still just want to do wrong. You still don't even want to try to make things right, even though you say nothing ever happened. Well, then you need to explain something, like explain this picture. Well, what are the circumstances of this picture? But the problem is with Andrew is whenever he tries to explain anything, he doesn't come off well. And why doesn't he come off well? Because he's an arrogant, disingenuous, spoiled, rotten baby child. And he will never be able to say things in a sincere way that shows humility and sincere remorse. Now, with that in mind, Andrew is being asked to come speak before Congress in the States to tell what he knows about his involvement with Jeffrey and to give more insight into a lot of the documents that were released, because there's a lot of connections to other people. And that's the other part of all of this, is that there are employees, there are associates, there are a lot of people in this circle that help to move this nefarious behavior along. Jeffrey did not just exist in a world where he could do all of these things without coming into contact with other people. For example, when he would meet up with these young girls, there were staff that would arrange these meetings, that would contact these young girls to arrange a time to meet with Jeffrey. Jeffrey wasn't calling up these girls himself. And there's a lot of information around the types of work that Jeffrey was doing, that Andrew could give insight to. He could be the kind of person that says, okay, I did nothing wrong, but I know it looks bad. I will testify, tell you what I know. As a matter of fact, I will support organizations that help trafficked girls. I will come clean with what I have done that may not look okay or that was not okay, and come before the world with some humility to say he's sorry. Because at this point, what else do you have to lose? What else do you have to lose? You're already being exiled. You're already leaving your accommodations. You already are going to go down as a bad person in history and in royal history. Like, your story has already been written. But you have a chance to make amends. And the fact that he doesn't even try to do that, to make amends, to do the right thing, shows he's still arrogant in his nefarious behavior. Although he says he's sorry for hanging out with Jeffrey or not cutting ties sooner, he says things that he never did nothing wrong for that matter. Well, then why not try to make it right if that is really the case? Because he still did something wrong. He don't want people to know about it. He don't want people to find out about it. So here is the story of this girl that I really want to address with everyone. So there was this 16-year-old girl who was in the thralls of Jeffrey Epstein, and she had a diary. And she would write a lot of things down in this diary about what happened to her. Now, one thing about this young girl you have to understand is she had a disability. She had a form of Down syndrome where mentally she was only at a 12-year-old level, but she was 16, and she had beautiful blonde hair. So the first thing that we know about this young girl, who we know is now much older, of course, but at the time she was 16. So she has autism and she has Down syndrome, and the kind of Down syndrome she has is called mosaic Down syndrome, where she would have some features of someone with typical Down syndrome, but it didn't really affect her physical appearance. And one of the things that I could imagine is why they really wanted this 16-year-old girl who had this autism and Down syndrome is because it's easy to take advantage of someone with a disability. And they thought that this would be an easy target. So what do? They talk to you, they control you with their perverse psychology. And then before you know it, you wind up in a very bad situation because you are not really able to understand a lot of times the manipulation that is being put on over you. So in her diary, she writes about getting impregnated and some of the circumstances where she was forced to engage in sexual intercourse. And she would have abortions. But there was a time when she actually gave birth to a child. She says that a couple of months and 2 pink lines with a hold on being with others until after it was positive. I want to die. Why didn't she protect me? As long as I am wearing what you want, there is no respect for me as a human. I am nothing but property and incubator. You only trust me when I am under your complete control. I will never trust a man ever. I am only one who provides a sacrifice and sacrifices everything. I give and give out of terror, and you take all of me. You need me to continue keeping us all connected. Then she goes on to talk about the baby. She was so beautiful. She was perfect. I can't bring myself to write what happened. I am beyond broken. So then she goes on to speak about the baby and how she only got like 10 to 15 minutes with the baby. She is mine. I want her back, distraught. And I say this to say that this is a common thing amongst the world of satanic rituals. Now, I know that recently Nicki Minaj made a comment about celebrities and the occult and how they do things to babies. And I think one thing that people don't understand about why the attraction to babies and young kids and fear and torture, it has something to do with the endorphins or a chemical that is released from a child when they are in pain and when they are suffering. They harness this to empower and to help themselves through the torture and pain that they inflict on these young people. That is part of it. And so her saying that they took her baby away, to me, sounds like they did something with that baby that was common to do to a child in this world of Satanism. And that's just me speculating, but the fact that she had this child and they took it from her, like what happened to that child? No one knows. It's a mystery. Now, I must say that this is what she is writing in her diary. It is not something that is proven to be true. I don't have a reason to not believe it, especially when you are someone that is mentally challenged, or when someone that is mentally, that's not quite mentally developed. To write something like this as a fantasy or to make it up around people who we know have engaged in very similar type behavior, to me, sounds like it could be a very true thing. So I do have to say that. Now, she goes on to say, close your eyes, don't speak. She doesn't talk. I can't stop shaking, and it's been a week. A decision was made, but I can't tell Jeffrey. These things happen. Why didn't I close my eyes fast enough? The doctor was different again. I think from Israel. He had kind eyes, but didn't speak directly to me. This was different. And this is her talking about one of the abortions that she had. A shot of those rod-like things had a hook and so much pain. Ghislaine said to push all the pain away. I don't understand. The blood and the water all over the bed, and she was right. Like feeling when your tummy hurts, you have to push. She said to close my eyes and put her hands on my eyes, but I didn't close them because of these tiny cries. I am lost. I saw between her fingers this tiny head and body in the doctor's hands. It reached its tiny arm up and had a tiny foot. I closed my eyes and no more. Jean-Loup Brunel is a disgusting pig with bad breath, and I am almost positive does these disgusting things because he is struggling with maybe being gay. 6 weeks wasn't even given before being sent back. Punishment for trying to run. Why can no one help me? Ghislaine is gone. I am so lost and my heart is broken. Is this my destiny? This is part of the story of the 16-year-old girl, and I think this brings me to why Andrew needs to testify. He needs to bring light to how does a girl wind up in this situation? How did Jeffrey meet this girl? How did she become this victim and was trapped? How did a lot of the girls wind up in this horrible circumstance? A lot of times they even had to recruit other girls for Jeffrey. So you find girls that are in these situations and you have to ask the question, how did this happen to you? How did you get here? There are so many questions. And Andrew could provide a lot of insight into a lot of things to help with young girls who are trafficked and even young boys, and to help bring closure or some justice to other victims. Because let's not get it twisted, folks. The stories that we're hearing about now with Jeffrey, they're happening all over the world. They're happening all over the world in real time. Like, it's happening right now. So for Andrew to sit on his horse and to wave and to have his whole life behind these invisible walls that protect him, he should come clean and do the right thing and testify and to give insight into what Jeffrey did, so that he could help other girls and boys that are going through these circumstances. So it's not enough to say you did nothing wrong and to have your title stripped away and to be put into a different living quarters that's not as nice as what you once had. It's not enough to do these things and to say, he just doesn't answer. He just doesn't want to say anything. No. You need to do things that put you in a very uncomfortable situation so that you can help other people. That's what you owe, Andrew. But you choose not to do it because some kind of twisted way, you are still being protected. You are still being protected for what you did and not being held accountable to at least say what Jeffrey did. Who were these girls? How did they end up there? That's what he wanted. But he has to at least come clean with something. It's not enough to just live your life in exile and to never say anything again. If Andrew wanted to make amends or do the right thing, he would speak to Congress. He would at least put something on paper and send it to them certified. I don't know. But not saying anything is not enough. And still being protected, I think, should be called out. Because he is. Andrew is still being protected. And the little girls' voices that were in these horrible circumstances are lost forever, and it's doomed to repeat itself over and over and over again. But in my thinking of the world and how it operates, it will never end because we live in a very evil world with people that support this evil, nefarious behavior because they want the superpowers of fame and they want the superpowers of wealth. They want a lot of things that this kind of world brings. And they're very selfish, and that's what they'll do. But at least Andrew could somewhat be a part of a solution. But at this point, he's still living a affluent and protected life with minimal consequences. So, yeah. That's all I have for this video, everyone. And I will see you in my next video. Cheerio.